Does Hugo Ekitike to Manchester United make sense? Today we're going to be answering that question and whether he can fit into Ruben Amorim's 3-4-2-1 structure. Does the French international suit playing as a lone forward in the Premier League? These are all the questions that we are going to deliver the information so you guys know the answers. If you're new around here, make sure to subscribe to the Statman Dave YouTube channel, like the video, but anyway, let's get this party started. So before we dive into Manchester United, we've got to understand what Ekitike has done for Frankfurt under Dino Topmuller. So at the back end of the season, Frankfurt were very much playing a 3-4-2-1 structure following the sale of Omar Mamouche to Manchester City in January. Ekitike very much led the line as the side's number 9. In terms of roles and how you characterise Ekitike as a footballer, he's a link forward or deep lying forward, a player that will drop off the line, receiving balls into feet before either flicking the ball quickly to his teammates or getting himself turned to drive forward and attack the opposition's backline, which is kind of Ekitike's first big strength as a footballer. That is him on the dribble. He's a player that's got that ability, naturally 1v1, to bypass challenges, to slalom through the opposition. He's got really good feet, and we saw that against Tottenham Hotspur in the Europa League from this season. Before looking at this example, one of the big things you want to understand about Frankfurt is they were probably the best counter-attacking team in Europe last season. They generated more expected goals from quick breaks than any other team in Europe's top 5 leagues. So that is a big theme in this. Ekitike in space, in situations where it can be 1v1 with a goalkeeper or looking for teammates. So we pick up the play with Spurs in the final third. There's a really good 50-50 challenge in midfield from Hugo Larsson, who drives the ball forward and plays it into the channel for Ekitike. This is the type of position that we see Ekitike in a lot for Frankfurt. This left channel, he loves moving into this area if he's not dropping deep to get on the ball. From this position, Spurs have got a 3v1 from a defensive situation. They're absolutely fine. But Ekitike's ability to carry into the final third, then cut inside and unleash a trademark low shot from outside the box into the bottom right corner is testament to his class. And that is a big thing with Ekitike. He has moments of brilliance like this against Tottenham Hotspur. So number 1, Ekitike is very skillful on the ball. The second big strength of the French international is his ability to generate shooting opportunities. That being clever movement in the box to escape the defender before side-footing the ball home or aggressively attacking across with his head. Ekitike's got great movement in the box, which allows him to get shots away. Here's an example of that movement against Borussia Dortmund in the Bundesliga. Ekitike, highlighted in the penalty area, aggressively attacks the space on the near post and simply side-foots the ball home. His ability to get into these situations will make him a very good goal scorer as he evolves as a footballer. But another reason why Ekitike can get so many shots away is he's got a very wide toolbox in terms of his finishes. That being dinks, chips, side-footed finishes high and low, or shots from outside the box. Ekitike's got a very wide range off both feet, which allows him to create those moments where he can get goals for Eintracht Frankfurt. And we see his long-range shooting against Bayern Munich in the Bundesliga. Ekitike first killing the ball with his first touch, then using his slaloming feet in a really tight area, slipping past the Bayern Munich midfield and then cracking an early shot from range which completely catches out Manuel Neuer to give Frankfurt the lead in the game. And a big reason why Ekitike will score a lot of goals in his career is his ability to generate these shooting opportunities from any area. Yes, his shots are a little bit wayward at the moment. His shot accuracy is around 40%. Compared to elite level strikers, that definitely needs a bit of work. But when you look at him playing as a centre forward by himself, I don't think you get the best Ekitike. In fact, in that game against Bayern Munich, Omar Mamouche partnered him up front. So instead of the 3-4-3 structure, what we saw at the start of the season with Frankfurt was more of a 4-4-2 shape, with Omar Mamouche up front with Hugo Ekitike and Knauf dropping back to a midfield position. What you tend to see there was Mamouche playing as the left striker and Ekitike as the right striker. But what you got with Frankfurt in this shape and system was a lot of direct play out of the back. Frankfurt were brilliant on the break, as I mentioned previously, but they were also really direct, either over the top to Mamouche or into the feet of Ekitike to then link with Mamouche. In terms of partnership, I'd imagine it as Mamouche being the advanced forward and Ekitike very much being this deep-lying player that's going to get on the ball and create opportunities for his teammates. But also it was very fluid. If you remember that Bayern clip we just looked at there, Ekitike was actually more of in a left sort of channel position, and Mamouche was more inside in a kind of right striker position. position. But in terms of where Ekitike goes next, I think the position that suits him the best is this area, playing as a left centre forward in a 4-4-2 or a 3-5-2 with another number 9. This is where you're going to get the best of the French international, and we saw that at Frankfurt in Dino Toffmüller's 4-4-2 structure that created so many opportunities on the counter. But going back to that relationship of Ekitike and Mamouche playing together, Ekitike is very much a high-risk, high-reward link man. What I mean there is he tries a lot of things when the ball goes into his feet. So if the ball's fired into him, he'll try first-time passes to try and get his teammates in, or flicks out wide to straight away get the winger running at the opposition. This is good in certain areas, but also it can be super frustrating to watch someone like Ekitike at times. He's got the talent, but sometimes it doesn't quite come off and it can be frustrating. But talking about moments where it really comes off, let's take a look at this example against Ajax. And this is what I class as classic Ekitike: the touch, the ability on the ball, and the vision to find the pass. So you pick up the play with Frankfurt building down the left-hand side with Ekitike highlighted. A little 1-2 has worked, and Frankfurt are inside. Ekitike is in this position, he's supporting the ball, he's ready for it to come into feet. From this position, he instantly could get himself turned because he's in a pretty good area, he's away from the defender. As the ball's fired in, he takes a good touch with the sole of his foot, something that we really enjoy on this channel. Again, things like Ryan Cherokee would do this all the time. It gives them that extra moment to make the next action, as the defender doesn't really know which way they're going to go. They could go left and they could also go right. What Ekitike does though, simply turns himself on the ball, gets his head up. What I like about this though is his patience. He waits for the right moment, spots the Frankfurt attacker making the run in behind the defence, and then finds him with a lovely through ball on his right foot for Frankfurt to grab the first goal of the game. Classic Ekitike outside the penalty area. But going forward, he mentioned the flicks, the tricks, the little touches inside the box. We've got a really good example of him against Hoffenheim in the Bundesliga. Once again, Omar Mamouche driving down that left-hand side. The relationship between the two players was great. And arguably, if you were any team in European football, you should have bought these two strikers if you were playing 4-4-2. Diego Simeone should have spent big in January. But obviously they've got players like Julian Alvarez. So how would you fit all three in? I don't know. But anyway, back to Ekitike. That's who we're focusing on today. So Mamouche driving inside, firing it into Ekitike's feet. Then the little touch through, first time pass for Hugo Larsson to screen through and pass the ball past the goalkeeper. Once again, high risk, high reward moves from the centre forward. When we look at his assist numbers in Europe's top 5 leagues, only one striker in Europe managed more assists than his 10 in all competitions. When you look at someone like Bruno Fernandes, he is a high risk, high reward attacking midfielder. Ekitike is like that as a centre forward. So Dave, you keep saying all these positive things about strikers, attackers, midfielders. We'll look at the bad side sometimes, and I think when you're looking at centre forwards, I think we've all learned a lot from Rasmus Højlund, a player that excelled at Atalanta that's really struggled with confidence in the last season. But I think one of the big things that frustrates me with young centre forwards is their ability to hold up the ball. But I believe that's an area where most young forwards aren't quite there. That's an area they need to refine. That's an area they need to develop with the physicality of age, but also that awareness of making the right choice at the right time. And like Rasmus Højlund, Ekitike can be quite frustrating when playing long balls up to him. They don't really stick at times, and you can see he attempts flicks at certain moments when he should just be holding onto the ball. Other times, defenders nick in at the right time and win the ball back. And I suppose that is the frustration of a player like Ekitike. All the talent in the world, the finishing, the high risk, high reward play in the final third, the tricks, the skills, but sometimes he doesn't do the basic things you want in your number 9. He can appear lightweight, he can get brushed off the ball, and he can easily get beaten in the air. But that's again something that we expect with young defenders. When you look at someone like Ekitike, he either needs to play in a 2 or potentially play wide. Very similar to Rasmus Højlund. You know, I'd love to see Rasmus Højlund, if he's at Man United next season, playing as the right forward. Not having that pressure as playing as the number 9. Because we all know that he's very good on the ball when it comes to dribbling and carrying. But we don't see him in those areas enough with his head up. Similar to Hugo Ekitike. And of course on this channel we have examples to back up our analysis. We don't just waffle. So one of the games we looked at was Ekitike versus RB Leipzig. He scored and assisted. But the first 20 minutes was probably some of the most frustrating centre forward play I have ever seen. So we pick up the play on 1 minute with Kevin Trapp playing a long ball up to Ekitike. And you can see in this this position, he's in a pretty decent area. He's got a run to jump on the ball. He should pretty much go up and win it, but he's dominated by the Leipzig back three, and simply Frankfurt don't win possession. Moving to another example on 4 minutes, another similar situation. This time the long ball comes up, he sees the defenders a little bit away, can kind of hold him off, tries to bring the ball down on his thigh, and it bounces away. 2 long balls have gone up. Frankfurt have not kept on to the ball, and this trend really continued in the first 20 minutes of the match. Ekitike this time pulling into the channel, Canal finding a ball down the line, and Ekitike trying to be too clever. I swear I've seen Rasmus Højlund do a similar thing, stepping over the ball and trying to go around the other side of the defender. Klostermann's having absolutely none of that. Wins the ball, and Frankfurt once again lose possession. We've got another clip, this time on 11 minutes. A ball played down the line. It's a little bit of a 50-50, but it's too smart. It's too clever from Ekitike. He's trying too much in this situation. Instead of bringing the ball down, holding it on, moving it to a teammate, and then attacking again, it's always that high-risk, high-reward play. Ekitike trying to flick the ball over to his teammate on the right wing, and it simply gets dealt with by the Leipzig left centre-half. And this is something that happened over and over again. Here's another example, a different situation. This time Ekitike off the line, receiving in that left channel, as you mentioned previously, an area that he really likes. But once again, getting it really wrong. A really good first touch. He gets himself into a good area, but he's trying too much. He's trying to thread the needle when potentially should just hold on to possession, which leads once again to Leipzig winning the ball back. So we're looking at 5 clips in the first 20 minutes of the game where Ekitike has lost the ball. This is something that I don't think can happen in the Premier League because defenders are going to be better. It's going to be a harder challenge. I'm not saying that Ekitike can't do it in the future, but I think right now, either playing with another centre forward or out wide is better for his development if he moves to the Premier League. But saying that, what's quite interesting about him is he had a terrible first 20 minutes, and we can see just on when it switches over 20 minutes, Ekitike provides a moment of brilliance. Again, pulling into the channel. We've got to remember this is kind of a counter-attacking situation. How many of those would he get at Manchester United? We're not quite sure. But Ekitike pulling wide, facing up the defender, driving across into the final third, getting his head up, finding the perfect pass, and Canal provides the finish. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that Hugo Ekitike is a bad player at all. He's capable of moments of brilliance. What I am saying though is his game needs to be refined, similar to Rasmus Højlund. There's definite ability in Ekitike's game, there's that moment of class, but maybe he needs to be less high risk, high reward all the time. He needs to play the percentages, recycle possession, link with a teammate, and then get into the box. But the raw materials are there for him to be a top striker in Europe. So what would Ekitike bring to Manchester United, and does this transfer make sense? So first and foremost, United are screaming out for a number 9 that's going to be consistent, that's going to score goals week in, week out. And I think first and foremost where Ekitike could line up for United is playing as this number 9. Having played in the 3-4-2-1 structure, Eintracht Frankfurt, he'll be well suited to the system. That being said, as we mentioned previously, he looked at his best in a 4-4-2 with Omar Mamouche as a strike partner. So for Manchester United, that would mean Amrin would have to adapt his shape and system. That being said, United could do that potentially with Matheus Cunha playing as a number 10 and Man United moving to a 3-4-1-2 structure, or alternatively maybe a 3-5-2 with Cunha dropping even deeper into midfield and Ekitike and Mbeumo playing as those 2 centre forwards. That being said, for me right now, Ekitike in this system should play as the left attacking midfielder. As we mentioned previously, he's a player that likes to dominate this inside left channel. He likes to receive in these positions with balls into feet and then get himself running at the opposition. This is a big thing for Manchester United. I feel at the moment they need a 9 that pins. They need a physical centre forward that's going to score goals. And I just don't think right now that is Ekitike. When we think about what Ferguson or Wenger would have done, with the likes of Wayne Rooney with Ferguson or Van Persie with Wenger, they like to play their younger 9s as wide forwards. Gives them the ability to adapt their game and to grow their game, making them comfortable all across the forward line. And I think right now for Ekitike, that would be the position for Manchester United that he would be better suited for. That being said, he could do a job for Manchester United as the number 9 as a deep lying forward, receiving into feet, allowing Mbeumo and Matheus Cunha to make those other runs in behind the defence. But I think the big thing here is Manchester United already have a player of that profile in Joshua Zirkzee. And I do think Joshua Zirkzee link play is a little bit better than Ekitike's. He's more reliable in terms of possession going into his feet, and we saw how devastating he can be with inside forwards around him. You think the game against Everton, one of the best performances under Ruben Amorim, Marcus Rashford scoring twice, which Zirkzee dropping off the line, causing the defenders for the Everton backline real problems, with Rashford scoring 2 goals. That's where I would see Joshua Zirkzee fitting in, and Ekitike is quite a similar player. More high risk, more high reward, and a better goal scorer than the likes of Joshua Zirkzee. That being said, Hugo Ekitike massively underperformed his expected goals last season, the most of any player in Europe's top 5 leagues. When looking at his shots over the season, there was a lot of shots that were wayward, that went over the bar, that missed the post, that were easily saved by the goalkeeper. There is some more refinement needed in his finishing. Yes, he's got great ability to get shots away off both feet with loads of variation, but hitting the target needs to be a key thing with his development. We've got to remember, this lad is just 23 years old, so there is room for improvement. But I think moving a little bit further forward in terms of Manchester United and where they want to go, one of the things from a possession perspective that we tend to see is United kind of really overload the left-hand side of the pitch. With Cunha, with Bruno Fernandes, they love operating in that zones. So having another player like Hugo Ekitike that would also want to move into that zone could either overload the opposition, or it would just create a super congested area with a lack of balance in the team. And I think for Ruben Amorim, when we're looking at the build-up structure, with players like, Bruno Fernandes moving high at times into attacking midfield, with Matheus Cunha dropping on the ball, it could actually work with Ekitike and build-up. But I just think with this Man United team right now, there's a lot of players that like that position on the pitch. So having another one probably doesn't bring great balance versus kind of having a number 9 that's really going to stretch the opponents, that allows for, the 2 number 10s to have even more space, really threatening the back line, allowing these 2 players to move across the pitch, to kind of combine, and then look for that last pass for Ekitike to finish. And I think that is a big question for Manchester United. The suitability of Ekitike within the system right now. I think in a year's time or 2 years' time, with his development at Frankfurt, with the amount of chances that he gets in Top Muller's side, you would see massive development in hold-up play and his finishing. And then Man United could buy the player that is ready. I think that's the strategy, especially when you consider the price tag. Frankfurt want 100 million euros or 85 million quid. When you consider the likes of Matheus Cunha and Bryan Mbeumo are going to cost around 60 million, a striker that's not really there, that's not really at the top of his game right now for 85 million, doesn't make sense. Would I buy him for 40, for 50? Maybe. But then I also think when you look at the Manchester United squad and what's available, obviously you've got Rasmus Højlund still at the football club, Joshua Zirkzee as well, that's probably going to play this deep-lying role. But then also when you think about Chido Obi, when I think of Chido Obi, I don't think about a player that I would play wide. I don't think he's the guy that's going to play as a left-sided attacking midfielder or right-sided attacking midfielder. I truly see him as the side's number 9. He is a poacher. He's a player that plays on the last line, that's better suited for Man United. And I think when you're looking at Ekitike, if Chido Obi wasn't at the football club, buying Ekitike, a young centre-forward, would make sense. But with Ekitike, given that he's kind of a similar age to Chido Obi in terms of they both need minutes within the next 3 to 4 seasons to truly develop, there's more question marks there than answers. So I do think it's a really interesting one. The player is very, very good. The player is capable of brilliance. But then when you also think about Frankfurt's recent sales as centre forwards for high fees that have usually struggled with the likes of Sebastian Haller, Luka Jovic, Andre Silva, Kolo Muani, there is a few red flags here. Probably Omar Mamouche is the only player you look at and you think that was good value for Manchester City. 100 million euros right now for Hugo Ekitike is an absolute rip-off. So in conclusion, does Hugo Ekitike to Manchester United make sense? I'd argue no. With Chido Obi's emergence and Manchester United needing a striker right now to score goals, but also to lead the line and be good in the Premier League, there's a few question marks in his hold-up play and his finishing. On top of the fact that the Bundesliga doesn't really export well to the Premier League in terms of strikers, we're looking at you, brother Timo. And in fact, Mark R. Stats on Twitter did some brilliant analysis a few seasons ago and actually saw there's a drop-off of 40% in terms of expected statistics when forwards move from Germany to England. There's question marks there for Hugo Ekitike's ability to adapt to the Premier League, the physicality, the strength, the pace. There's too much here for me to say this transfer doesn't make sense. But anyway, guys, get into the comments below. What do you think? Do you think Manchester United should sign Hugo Ekitike or stick with Chido Obi as their young centre-forward? I've been Statman Dave, of course. Subscribe if you do, and we will see you next time.
Thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, why not check out some more content on the Statman Dave YouTube channel?